Northwest Indiana Green Drinks. We're celebrating our 12th year of having these presentations. And we are sponsored by Save the Dunes, Michigan City Sustainability Commission, and 219 Green Connect, which is Kathy Sippel's creation, and Kathy is with us this evening. I also want to recognize our guest hosts this month. We have many of them: 95.1 FM AM, 1420 WIMS, which is radio for Northwest Indiana, Southwest Chicago, and Southeast Michigan. Northwest Indiana Regional Planning Commission, and that is Mitch's organization, South Shore Trails, and also Greenways and Blueways of Northwest Indiana, and that is part of Mitch's realm also. So I want to go ahead and introduce Mitch very briefly. I would call him a cycling champion and trail advocate, and he's so excited about this that all of you will be extremely excited by the end of the presentation. He works for NIRPC as their Active Transportation Manager, and I love that adjective active is in front of your title.
That's right.
Also, he received the Hoosier Environmental Council Sustainability Champion of the Year, and also IDEM's Mark Siminski's Bicycle Award recipient. And I thought he got an award this last year too, but I finally figured out he was giving out a whole bunch of awards this past year. So anyhow, what I'm looking forward to is finding out the exciting news about the missing link between the Singing Sands Trail in Michigan City and the Michigan state line, since that's very close to where I live. So take it away, Mitch, please.
Nancy, thank you. Wow, what a turnout. Look at this. It is Hollywood Squares on steroids. I love it looking at my screen right now. Thank you, Nancy. Thank you, Kathy, too. I mean, this is maybe my fourth appearance on Green Drinks since it's been initiated. I've been at NIRPC for 20 some years, so it's always great that over the years I've been able to kind of accumulate so many great connections and being part of such great groups such as Green Drinks. And again, very humbled that you bring me back. I'm going to try to make sure you can see all this. There you go. The Bike Rack Hair Club for Men. I think that has shown up here. Very good. Anyway, as for me, I have had a very happy career at NIRPC. I cannot get enough of ribbon cuttings, and we're going to have several more this year as well. I have just a brief introduction. Yes, Active Transportation Manager. I have been on board NIRPC now for 20 years, into my 20th year. And it's just great. Again, we were able to really build some great momentum at the start, and now that is rolling right along. And I have the honor and the blessing of doing this not only in my home region of Northwest Indiana. I was raised in Maryville. I also have the opportunity to do it statewide. I serve also as the president of the board of the Greenways Foundation. It's a nonprofit group that is trying to, again, advocate trails throughout the state of Indiana. And you may see us more clearly with our license plates that we also have out there. So consider getting a Greenways Foundation license plate and helping our cause, although the environmental plates are just fine too. I get that as well. So what I'm going to do is kind of run through what's happening in Northwest Indiana and kind of give you an overview about the trails that are coming on board, and not get into all of it, and then a little bit more about what we do here at NIRPC to kind of give you that all-around understanding of how we're trying to create a non-motorized culture in our region. Of course, I always have to do the disclaimer about NIRPC. Not everyone knows who we are. I know many on the call do know, but we are a nonprofit. We are not a nonprofit. Technically, we are, I guess, but we are a metropolitan planning organization, MPO. We serve these three counties, and again, what we do is long-range planning, and of course, we do a lot of work with environmental planning and trail planning in our region. Now, going back to how this all started, we can thank the railroads, and this map is usually the best prop that I have for that. All those red lines that you see through our three counties is our railroads. These were active railroads in the late 1800s. We had over 1,000 miles of them, just crisscrossing all over the place. Of course, we had Lake Michigan having a lot to do with that. And today, of course, Lake Michigan strongly influences where our transportation corridors are. But over the years, many of them basically kind of succumbed to bankruptcy, abandonment. In fact, over 300 miles did. And over the years, we've been able to convert many of those miles into trails and have this very robust trail network that has developed and has continued on in this day. So what you see before you is what has developed. Much of this you see here, these priority trail corridors are areas that we are trying to find homes for trails, has emerged. When I first started, it was very rudimentary, and you can see it has become quite more robust. A lot of visionary routes here, but everything you see in this light blue is our core network. Those are either built or funded. Now, Marquette Greenway is a bit of a misnomer. We'll get to that momentarily along the lakefront, but much of that is done. And what we're trying to do is use those darker greens that connect to it to expand our core network throughout the region, especially into our county seats such as Valparaiso and LaPorte for just starters, but so many other different routes that I'm going to kind of touch on here in this presentation. But this guides our work at NIRPC. What we do, we get a whole bunch of money, and we do get about $5 to $6 million a year to plan towards trail development, and this is how we actually funnel that money through. So if a particular project comes in, if it's on a darker green line, hey, you have a higher priority of getting funded. So this is kind of how we guide our work. And we have 26 corridors in Northwest Indiana. And as you can see by the amount of green on this map, I have plenty of job security. I'm fine. This is great. We continue to move forward. So let's talk about what we have on the ground here with greenways and blueways. We have a couple things. I'll talk about other trails. But by land, we have about 195, nearly 200 miles of paved trails in the region. We only had 13 miles in 1990. So that is a credit to regional planning and many of the great elected officials throughout the region, as well as their staffs that have been working hard to get this done over the years. All our 9 are operational in this region, about 30 miles funded for imminent development, which is in about 5 years. 9 miles are slated for construction in 2024. It is a planned vision of 30 priority corridors spanning 500 miles of off-road trail, and we have 600 miles of shared route, which is roadways with signage. Now, I've been doing this presentation for many, many moons, and I'm getting a little bit less confident about our shared route network, only because the emergence of cell phones and distracted driving is very difficult. That is kind of bringing on a much bigger emphasis for complete streets. I'll touch on that at the end of this presentation. We also have water trails, and water trails started because, hey, they're already in there. Okay, that's the best thing. They're already there. You just have to get to them. And in the olden days, Father Marquette and other great pioneers came through our region by water, and we have all these great resources in Northwest Indiana. What you see on the map here is what we kind of outlined back in 2007 with our first Greenways and Blueways plan. People love the Greenways, but a lot of people don't really understand about the Blueways. Blueways, of course, trying to get people out on the waterways for paddling. We have Lake Michigan, which is a premier sea kayaking location, the Kankakee River to the south of the region, and then all these other streams and ditches and what have you that run through the region. Of course, Lake County aptly named because it's quite wet, a lot of waterways. And you can see all the types of opportunities we have there. And so we worked very well on getting that done. And today, by sea, we have about 15 potential water trails that we did identify in 2007. We have distributed a Lake Michigan brochure. We have explored regional routes along the Little Cow and Kankakee rivers. We do have a Kankakee water trail map. We have worked on local routes in Lowell, Dyer, Portage, and Michigan City. Trail Creek is a very good example of a trail, kind of a local water trail success. And then the local route on the Little Calumet River in Porter, or the east branch of that, being worked on by several stakeholders, including the National Park, and even the campsite that was created along the Kankakee River in LaPorte. Now, it's a mixed bag. When we first did this, no one had really went out there to scout the trails. I kind of highlighted my friend Durs Anderson. He's at the very bottom right of this screen here, but some of the trails are very difficult. This is what we call our Heart of Darkness tour. This was Deep River in Hobart. In about a 2-mile segment, we had 40 portages and 40 near misses, and I basically cried in a field of stinging nettle. No kidding. So I admit that. But anyway, a lot of them were like this, however. Clear, ready to be paddled, just have to get the access down there. This is actually Cedar Creek and Lowell, right through downtown Lowell. And this is what you find with these routes. You got 1, 2, maybe a few more miles of paddleable water that youth can get in there, have a great time, spend a good hour to get into nature and get away from the urban grid that's around them. And we're trying to promote that throughout the region on a localized basis. And of course, we're so proud of the Northwest Indiana Paddling Association. Some people may be on this call that are part of this group. Talk about really lighting a fire. This group, within a year of that plan being announced about 15 years ago, they had about 500 members. And to this day, they are basically a turnkey operation. If I ever get a question about paddling in a community, I say, well, there's this group, and then basically their stewardship and all, they're out there doing their work with the local entities. So a great success story there. So let's move on to the actual land-based trails. We have plenty of them that are scattered all throughout Northwest Indiana here. And I'm not going to touch on all of these. Many of them are kind of finished and done. We have like the Erie-Lackawanna Trail in Central Lake County. We have the Prairie Newland Trail. They've been established for many years. The Great Valparaiso Pathway System, and even the Veterans Trail in South Lake County. Great systems that are moving along. And of course, lots of these trails come into the Marquette Greenway. So if you see this guy's head in any of the slides, you'll know it's part of the Marquette Greenway network. I'm going to tie up the entire Marquette Greenway project at the tail end of this presentation, but as I talk about these trails, you'll see this guy pop up. So let's talk about one of the trails that is currently kind of in flux at the moment is the Monon Trail. And I say in flux because this is where the new West Lake corridor is being built for the NICD line. It's actually going to be called the Monon line when it opens up, I think either probably sometime next year. It's Hammond to Munster. It's a 4.3-mile connection. And if you take a look at this outline here, you can see the Ridge Road Station in Munster. And what I wanted to highlight, well, the circle's off, but anyway, the Monon Trail is where that circle should be. But the Monon Trail is part and parcel of this project. If you go out there now, you'll actually see that they have created the Monon. It's not open yet for the public, but when you get to the Little Calumet River, just to the north of the station, there is a way of getting under the tracks and then over the water. So they have gladly provided a clear and safe passage for the Monon to continue and to basically preserve that very important connection from downtown Hammond into Munster. And now let's talk about some other projects that are kind of bubbling to the surface here. I want to talk about the C&O Greenway, first of all. People may not know about the C&O, but it is a planned 12-mile trail from Oak Ridge Prairie and Griffith all the way to Winfield, right through the heart of Maryville, Indiana. Right now, we have about 5.4 miles complete, and 2.5 miles are planned to open just this year. In fact, there will be a grand opening of that 2-mile stretch, 2.5-mile stretch later this month. More to come on that, but there it is outlined in that blue dash line. So if you take that dash line, which is State Route 53, and you continue on to the east, you'll see that it comes to Mississippi Street. That is kind of the current place of termini for the trail at this time. So that's what we have on the books. This is the new trailhead that just got erected and developed at the Oak Ridge Prairie. So this is coming off looking from the Oak Savannah Trail, and people probably are familiar with the Oak Savannah, but there's the Oak Savannah and there is the new C&O Greenway. So at this point, you can take this trail straight through the heart of Maryville to South Lake Mall over 5 miles into the towns. So we hope to get that continued to Winfield. Getting through South Lake Mall is going to be a bit of a challenge. Of course, here's another peek at one of the kiosks that we have erected at that particular site. And now, even better news is when we got Taft here at State Route 55, I said 53 earlier, my bad, State Route 55, just north of this site is Calumet Cemetery, and just behind us is Innsbrook Country Club. But there's going to be a hawk signal right across the street here. So it'll provide a safe push-button red light passage for people to get through there. Hawk signals are becoming far more popular, as you can only imagine, than bridges. Bridges are far more expensive edifices, and if people can actually cross that grade, it saves them time, and again, it saves a whale of a lot of money. So we're seeing more of these hawk signals being erected throughout our region. And again, Maryville. So the trail itself stops about here in this sea of strip malls and what have you, and traffic. So getting through here is going to be very difficult, and we still have to work with Hobart and Maryville officials to make sure we have a safe passage through South Lake Mall and continuing on to the Lake of Four Seasons. So that's the future of the C&O Greenway. Let's talk about the Pensy Greenway. The Pensy has been in and continuing to work and develop, and it is a Lansing to Crown Point trail. When it is all completed from the Little Calumet River between Calumet City and Lansing all the way to Crown Point, it'll be about 15 miles. We hope to see a section done between Cherville and Maryville shortly. We have about 10 miles that are complete now. It says soon, but they are complete now. And we deal with 4 jurisdictions in 2 states. A very successful trail that actually kept its name across the state line, which is extremely unique if you have any understanding of the history of our region. Beautiful trail. This is how it looks in Centennial Park in Munster. And This was a section, about a 2 mile or so section that was just opened up last year in Cherville. This goes from Mormon Park to Clark Road. Clark Road is the boundary between Cherville and Crown Point. So I get lots of questions about when is this trail going to connect to the Erie Lackawanna Trail in Crown Point. So let me show you a map of how this will work. If you take a look at this map, you'll see this light blue line. The light blue lines, you'll see the Pensy on one side of the screen. On the right side of the screen, you'll see the Erie Lackawanna Trail. If you take a look in that area, there's White Hawk Golf Club, but 91st Avenue cuts between the two of them. You'll see the yellow line. That's what we're hoping to actually pave between these two trails. We wanted to go through White Hawk. There was some areas there that we thought we could actually scope out and make it work, but golf course owners are not keen on having trails go through their facilities. Go figure. So what we hoped we could do with this purple line is at least maybe get it to White Hawk to connect those residents in, but I'm not holding my breath. So expect the town of Maryville and Cherville to combine to work on this yellow line, and we hope to have them funded possibly later this year, although it's going to take a few years to get them built because our program that we do at NIRPC is a 5-year program, so they'll probably be building that maybe in 28 or 29, but it can move up, so we're hoping to get that done. All right, so other trails that may or may not be knowledgeable to all of you is the Old Plank Road, which is the extension of the existing Old Plank Road from Chicago Heights to Cherville. It is a 22-mile trail that currently exists from Chicago Heights all the way to Joliet. We want to continue to bring that east. The purple line is being shown here, is purple and yellow line here are the actual connections of it. That's an additional 8 miles between the Chicago Heights Termini and the Marquette Greenway behind the logo there is where we will bring it to. We have maybe some designs on continuing it to the Erie Lackawanna, but that's going to be very difficult. There's some industrial lands and railroads to work with there. So it's just this land that we'd like to bring it from Chicago Heights into Dyer and Cherville. This gives you an idea of what has been funded to date. So this is the Indiana section of the Old Plank Road Trail. And there it is, the Marquette Greenway over the right. You have about 1 mile there that is Cherville and another mile that gets you to Central Park in Dyer. That has been funded. We hope to get that started and maybe built by 2027. The problem is the railroad that we are looking to utilize, which is an abandoned Norfolk Southern Railroad, is still owned by Norfolk, and they're being very tricky about it. Railroads are not the easiest people to deal with when it comes to these things, to say the least, and we are trying to work carefully with them on the placement of the trail. But as you can tell, Marquette Greenway is a very well-used facility in our region, and this will bring people straight off of the Marquette right into the heart of Dyer. Dyer has no trail connections right now, so this is obviously a giant priority for our region. And if you want to learn more about the Old Plank Road, that is under a study right now to get it kind of analyzed and figure out what the best route is between Chicago Heights and Cherville. If you go to this website on the bottom, you can learn a lot more about the project, and you can even take a survey and kind of lend your own voice to that. We hope to have the study out by the summer. And as I try to tell a lot of people, study doesn't mean funding, unfortunately. So we're going to still have to work on the communities to get it funded through there. But already, just so you know, I believe the Cook County Forest Preserve in Illinois has funded the engineering from Chicago Heights to the state line. So right now we're still working on a gap in Dyer to maybe connect the two together, and we'll see how that continues to work out. All right, now let's continue back in Lake County, the Oak Savannah Trail. This is a very popular and a complete facility from the Oak Ridge Prairie in Griffith all the way to the Porter Lake County line between Hobart and Portage, about 10.3 miles, but I want to focus you right there in the Oak Ridge Prairie, all the way to the left side of your screen. Why? Because we got a grand confluence. I've already talked about these trails, but here's what we have now set up as it stands today. The Erie Lackawanna, the Oak Savannah, and the C&O Greenway all come together at the Oak Ridge Prairie. So if you want to ride your brains out, this is the place to go to, okay? And it's just kind of developed symbolically over the years. Again, getting this connection from the Oak Savannah to the Erie Lackawanna was a very big issue because people were riding on roads and it was very unsafe. And of course, the C&O coming in through there. So again, the circumstances of these abandoned corridors have really kind of worked out to the benefit of the region. And so again, if you really want to take in some great trail riding in the region, you want to start at Oak Ridge County Park. It's a beautiful trail. If you haven't been on the Oak Ridge Prairie, it's managed by Lake County Parks. Pretty much most of it, instead of inside the town of the city of Hobart, they maintain theirs. But I do say it's pretty much the prettiest ride in the region. It is all canopied. And because the railroads back then didn't have to worry about environmental laws, they just built up wherever they wanted to. So they had to keep the trains level, and usually you're kind of riding up in the treetops because there's a lot of marshland in there and so forth. And so we take advantage of their environmental ignorance at the time, but you can enjoy the treetops to your heart's content if you actually use that particular trail. All right, let's kick over to Porter County, why don't we? The Calumet Trail. Many people are familiar with the Calumet Trail. It was a trail from Porter to Michigan City. It is the oldest trail in Northwest Indiana. It was first built in 1972 and it's about 9 miles. And I put complete. Why complete? Because it is our fail trail. It has not weathered very well over the years. In fact, if you go out there now, this is probably what will greet you. I do not recommend bikes. I probably recommend more like waders or even a canoe at this point. So anyway, this has been a problem for years. Many people have talked to me and have talked to officials in Porter County about, come on, we got to fix this. This is like the main trail of the dunes and this is how it looks. And yes, you're right. It is in need of repair and it's going to get repaired. In fact, I am here to tell you that the Calumet Trail will be rebuilt over the next 2 years. They're going to start this year a couple end sections, and then they're going to do a middle section next year, pretty much through the national park. And this is the profile that'll come about. We're going to raise the trail. We're going to put in culverts. So we're going to make sure that it doesn't flood anymore, and it will be paved in asphalt throughout that entire corridor. One of the best developments out of this, and Rafi Wilkinson, I don't know if he's on the line, but he's with the national park. He has worked one-on-one with me and with Porter County officials on kind of rerouting the Calumet Trail into this yellow line segment that you see. The current trail is in that blue segment, which is in the NIPSCO right-of-way. But again, the 9 mile trail within a NIPSCO right-of-way is pretty monotonous, and you'll basically, burn to death. There's no shade whatsoever in that entire stretch. Here, we're taking the trail onto some old service roads within the national park that haven't been used in many years, and we're going to get people into the park itself through the shade, actually touching into areas that have yet to be connected for many years, getting the campgrounds connected and so forth. This is going to be a very, very scenic stretch of the trail from the Dune Park Station to the west, all the way to the east to the Beverly Shores area. So very excited about this development, and big thanks to Rafi and the National Park for being open-minded and making it happen. Again, this segment of the trail, which is roughly about 6 miles of the entire length of the trail, is planned to be constructed next year. Okay. And when it's all said and done, by the way, the Calumet Trail will be retired. It will become the Marquette Greenway. And I do want to show you a couple of pictures here. The picture on the right shows you where the trail will be located. It's being identified right now. Lots of work being done by the national park, identifying the most strategic route to place the trail. Yes, you have old service roads, but they have grown over, and they want to make sure that nothing endangered will be endangered with the construction. So that's being identified, but that's kind of gives you an idea of the flavor of the route going through a very densely foliated area. And the picture on the right is very significant because this is NICD getting in on the act, providing safe, separated crossing of their tracks. The double track project is being wrapped up from NICD between Michigan City and Gary, and you can see what they're doing here. They're actually providing a separated and its own gates and even a sign. There's a sign there because there's 2 trains, and they want to make sure that people understand there are 2 trains coming. So great work, and big shout out to NICD for working with Porter County and National Park on making this happen. And if you ever work with railroads like I do, this is an unbelievable sight. When I came across it, my jaw dropped. I had to pick it up a few times. So good to see that happening. And when you continue to move along the Marquette Greenway / Calumet Trail vicinity, of course, you're going to get into the national park. This is the actual entrance to the state park. A great partnership that we had with DNR to make this work in the day and to get that done. And then we get into eventually the Singing Sands Trail. And again, this is a major element of the Marquette Greenway. The Singing Sands Trail has been a project that we have been cooking for nearly 12 to 13 years, if not longer. I think in the mid-aughts, I began work with the city of Michigan City, Shannon Easton, I think even back then, on working on plans to get this done. And what you see here between the red and the green lines has come about over the years. It wasn't that all over the place at first, but it has developed there for reasons. You can see the Singing Sands Trail there to the very left side of the screen on the bottom. You'll see it complete going around the the Blue Chip Casino, I'm sorry, going around there and then making its way around near Friendship Gardens, International Friendship Gardens, and then making its way eventually along US 12 with the red line. And I have to give a lot of credit where it's due. Craig Phillips was a former planner for Michigan City and actually had us use that route that kind of winds around the Blue Chip area, because there's an old bridge. There's actually not an old bridge, but a trail bridge that goes over Trail Creek that has never been used, which is this isolated trail that no one could connect to. And we actually looped it into this actual network. And it's turned out to be just great because it is scenic. It's a very pretty ride down there. You get down into the waterway and it's utilizing some lands that without the trail, you would really never know exist. So we're very proud of that. Some pictures of the trail, yes, you get some you're going through some areas of industry and some railroads and some highways. Thankfully, some creative minds have been able to snake the trail through these areas. This is when you first enter Michigan City from the west as you're proceeding Route 12 right into the NIPSCO smokestack there. And as you continue through the town or through the city, you eventually come to some areas that are far prettier and far more scenic. And this is an old landfill that has been kind of turned into a kind of a reclaimed landfill by the city of Michigan City. That is on the current eastern side or near, I think it's near Liberty Trail. And the importance of this segment is that it did run over costs, because as they were actually digging the footings for this, they came across like old shipping containers and what have you. Kind of delayed the process a bit. You never know what you're going to find in the landfill. So they had to do some boardwalking in that area, but it's turned into an amazing stretch of trail for the community of Michigan City and again for the region in general. So I'm going to kind of go back south real quick to get you an update on the Chessie Trail. Again, Chessie, people may not know of it, but this is going to be the trail connection that gets people to the core of the network from the county seat of LaPorte. And it is eventually a 29-mile trail from Michigan City to LaPorte. That's a lot of miles. I'll talk about that in a moment in more detail. We have about 1.5 miles open, and yet another mile will open up later this year. So showing what it looks like now, I do not advise you to ride that way. Anyway, this is how it looks in LaPorte. And we have this segment of the trail that will open up this year that has been paved and mainly concrete, that is more or less a wide sidewalk that gets into the heart of the city of LaPorte itself. And so that is also underway. Now, that's all well and good. But again, like Valparaiso, trying to get people out of the actual community to the broader community, this is what has been planned thus far. And try to follow along here. But the Chessie Trail, and this is a project that has been initiated by the city of LaPorte, hiring an engineering firm to outline the possibilities of making the connection from the Chessie pretty much into Michigan City and the Marquette Greenway, which is kind of identified in the top. I think you can see my little cursor here, up here in the top right-hand side. So the trail itself is going to utilize most likely the NIPSCO corridor and the NICD corridor, the South Shore line here, connect to this is the old Chessie. Again, it was the old Chessie line. So that is the old Chessie Railroad corridor that comes north out of LaPorte and eventually bisects with this corridor here. This Chessie line keeps going to New Buffalo, by the way. So there is opportunity to connect to Harbor Country in another avenue in this way. But right now we kind of want to get people into the Michigan City vicinity. You can see all this land, however, all this land between here, really no clean way of making it happen. We've looked at a lot of these roads. They're narrow, they're winding, speed limits are very fast, and we really can't do much in the way of a complete street, modifying the roadway to accommodate bike and ped safely. So right now, this is kind of the best way we're working at it. We might have questions about how is this going to get built? When's it going to be funded? Well, you have to remember the city of LaPorte only can get it so far. So after that, you have to get LaPorte County on board to make the rest of it work. There's a lot of investment necessary for this. So we're probably looking at a phased trail over several years to get this accomplished between both of the cities. And that's what we do in NIRPC. So we keep pushing it along. So let's talk about the big deals. You're all here for the big deals. I know you are. First of all, we have this overview map that shows you the big deals that I'm going to go over. The Marquette Greenway, which I have been talking about pretty much this entire time. And then kind of the American Discovery Trail / Great American Rail Trail that comes to the southern part of our region that you might or might not be familiar with. So the Marquette Greenway, here you are. It is the Chicago to New Buffalo route. The approximate length is 60 miles, but that kind of changes depending on, as I told you before, when you work with the communities, such as that time we worked with Craig Phillips in Michigan City, and we're doing the same type of work in Portage now. We're doing the same work in East Chicago. The mileage kind of changes, but it's in that 60-mile vicinity. It combines a number of the current trails, as I mentioned in this presentation. It does do 17 jurisdictions in 3 states. We have been working at NIRPC on the Marquette Greenway now for the last 15 plus years. We put out a poster plan back in 2009 that initially launched it. And since that time, we have dealt with 44 different segments of the Marquette Greenway to make this happen. It is as complex as you can imagine it would be. It is not a straightforward route. We do not have abandoned right-of-ways. There are a few little specks of abandoned right-of-way to work with, but mostly it's what we call in-country. It's kind of virgin turf, so to speak, that we're winding this trail through and making it happen. The chart that you see on the left-hand side of the screen, everything you see in that kind of darker blue color is funded, actually built. The lighter blue is fully funded, and then that darker red is partly funded. And then you got a higher, you have a true red, only one segment of it that is yet to be funded in the city of Hammond, but we think we can make that work. And when you put it all together and add it all up, you get your 60 miles and you get, it says 114. It's going to be closer to $120 million when it's all said and done, as inflation will take over on some of these phases. So I'm going to kind of roll through a few pictures regarding the Marquette Greenway, get you up to speed on what's happening with it. Again, much of it is done in this, pretty much in the city of Hammond and Whiting is pretty much all done. We have some great features, such as this one here, the bridge that was erected just a few years ago in the city of Hammond over Calumet Avenue to connect people to Wolf Lake. And that gets people from the Whiting section to Wolf Lake and then continuing south on the Greenway. And then it kind of winds its way, and then we get to kind of the big piece in the national park. The engine of the Marquette Greenway is the Dunes National Park, full stop, okay? It is the main attraction of the entire trail. In fact, the national park has been planning for this trail since the 70s, connecting their east and west halves. And this is how the route will more or less go through there. 22 miles, roughly 22 miles of the trail are within the land holdings of the national park. The trail that you see here in the dark blue is more than 22 miles because it's going through some communities, it's going through Portage, it's going through Burns Harbor, but most of this is in the national park. So I've always said, and I always talk to people about every national park has a trail. You know, there's always a great trail with every great national park, and this will be ours, the Marquette Greenway. And as you can see, all the way to the very left side of your screen, it connects in downtown Gary at Union Station, winds its way to Miller Woods, continues through West Beach, and continues through Minoki Prairie, and then all the way around to the existing Calumet Trail area, where it then eventually comes into the Mount Baldy vicinity and comes into Michigan City. So this is where we kind of hand off. NIRPC has been managing the trail outside of the park. Rafi Wilkinson and the National Park Service has been doing a stellar job making it work inside the park. Their investment alone is in the multi-millions to get this done. It's broken up into 3 phases, actually. There's a phase, I'm trying to break this out as best as I can without losing people, but there's a phase in Miller that goes from, I believe, Lake Street all the way to the county line. That's one phase that has been funded. That includes the existing Marquette Trail, which will be paved and turned into the Marquette Greenway. I believe phase 2 goes from Lake Street going west to Union Station in Gary. That is by far the most expensive part of it. There is a crossing of Norfolk Southern Tracks near US Steel that'll be in the $10-12 million range just across. And then I believe phase 3 is from County Line Road all the way to the Portage Lakefront and Riverwalk. So we're continuing to work with them. They're continuing to try to get the national park to continue to fund the trail. And, you know, I got my, I'm busy enough trying to get Gary, Chicago, and some of these other gaps finished up just because of the complication of the territory out there. You have industry, you have waterways, you have highways and railroads, and there's just a lot of challenge. And then you do have some very prime environmental areas that we're trying to respect and take advantage of in a very respectful way and help people enjoy these areas and help people understand the pockets of scenic beauty that are along the way, which is really one of the best parts of the Marquette Greenway. And of course, while I have this slide in front of you, I do get a lot of questions too about why is it on the lakefront? It's like, well, we're not Chicago. Okay. People have to have just a very basic understanding of real estate. As the lakefront has developed over the years in Indiana, it's cut between state parks and industry and private residences. So the Marquette Greenway gets you as close as possible to the lakefront. And then it also gives you many different outlets to access the lakefront through many public access points. So trust me, if you're on that trail, if you do want to hit the lake, you'll have plenty of great opportunities to do so. I think there's only about 2 places where you actually be able to see the lake from the trail itself, and that's one in Whiting and one, I think, in the Washington Park vicinity in Michigan City and maybe in New Buffalo. But that's about as close as we can get. Sorry. But moving on, parts of the Marquette Greenway, this would be an exceptional route. This is how it'll look eventually when it is, you'll see pavement in Miller Woods here, in the Gary vicinity. And something I'd like to bring to your attention is a current picture. I just took this yesterday. This is fresh. Talk about fresh. This is a fresh picture. We have a mile of trail of the Marquette Greenway that is being built between Michigan City and the state line. There's a unincorporated section that is being managed by LaPorte County. We funded this several years ago, and if you know anything about our funding, we work with federal money. It's not an overnight procedure. I think this project has been in our program for maybe 5 or 6 years, and it's finally getting going and getting paved. So this is the Marquette Greenway. As you are looking towards Michigan, you can see the classic Redimax sign in the background there. But you may see over here too this kind of end work sign. That is a state line between Indiana and Michigan. Grand Beach Road is right there on the right, and then you have the Amtrak, and then you have US 12 continuing on the right. So this should open up within the next month. I mean, they pretty much have finished putting the base coat in for that segment of the trail. And that gets people to the state line and gets people to the Michigan City border. The Michigan City project, we are hoping to get going as early as next year, maybe as late as 26 to make that connection. Now, I do want to bring up the state of Michigan because they are a major part of the Marquette Greenway. In fact, if I could only bottle the energy that people have demonstrated in Michigan for their 4 miles, I could probably build 400 miles of this trail, to be honest with you. They have been over the top. They've raised over nearly $500,000 in private monies on top of the millions of federal monies just to get this done. And it includes 2 phases of the trail. One phase is kind of goes from the state line, just about a couple miles. And if you take a look here, it's about right here where the trail crosses. And then this phase, which is from this point all the way into downtown New Buffalo, just yesterday, they broke ground on. So I'm pleased to say that 3 miles a segment that'll take the trail from downtown New Buffalo all the way to about, like I say, about a mile short of the Indiana state line will be constructed within this year. So obviously the people in New Buffalo are over the top excited. It was a wonderful day, press conference, maybe helicopters. It was overcast. I couldn't tell. But anyway, it was just a fabulous time, even though the weather didn't cooperate. I mean, there was just so much love in the air and it worked out great. So that's moving along. And we hope to have that segment between this and Michigan City, or this segment in LaPorte and then Michigan City, and get that underway within the year as well. So let's talk about a couple other big deals while we're here. The American Discovery Trail, you may have heard of this one. This is primarily a hiking route from Washington, D.C. to California. You've got a northern and a southern route that breaks off in Denver and Cincinnati. This does go through our region, and it's been on the books for many, many years, and it is an open route, but most of it is on roadway. We would like to move the American Discovery Trail off of those roads, of course, on the trail, but it is currently a route that is being championed by the American Discovery, or the American Discovery Trail Society, as well as the American Hiking Society. And if you try to ride a bike on this, you're not going to, you'll have quite a bit of success until you get west to the Rocky Mountains, and it gets quite rugged at that point. But a actual off-road trail is in the works from Washington, D.C. to Washington State. It is the Great American Rail Trail. This is a initiative of the Rails to Trails Conservancy, and they are looking to construct this all the way through the country there, through those 15 states. You can see a lot of it. If you see the dashed line, most of those dashed lines are happening in the western states. There's a lot of challenges there, but a lot of Indiana, I think over half of Indiana has been constructed. And if you continue east of Indiana, much of Ohio, and of course, all of Pennsylvania and Maryland have been constructed with the Great Allegheny Passage and the Cumberland Pass. So those things are done, at least in that part. But again, this is a multi-year initiative working with many states. Here's a detail of how the Great American will look in the Northwest Indiana vicinity. And as you can see here, we're trying to bring it through LaPorte County, that salmon color. Those are parts of the trail that we still need funding for. Everything in green has either been funded or built on the Great American. And I do want to point down to La Crosse. That has been our latest success on this trail. You can see there is a green line that goes from La Crosse near to the Kankakee River. That was just awarded just last December, a couple months ago, by Governor Holcomb, Next Level Trails. They had the event in La Crosse. It's safe to say it was the biggest event ever held in the town of La Crosse. I can say that safely. They had the event and they gave out checks to every recipient of the Next Level Trails program. It was just insane. It was amazing. They had all that cardboard checks ready for people, and it was just some great vibes all around. So Next Level Trails, not being federal money, gets built a lot faster, and we're hoping that that segment in La Crosse for the Great American could be up and running probably within the next year or two. So congratulations to La Crosse on that. Some other things that kind of tie up what we do here at NIRPC. We do, of course, work with on-street trails. I know I talked about before, I'm not very keen on this, but we do have Route 36 throughout our region here. There is a United States bicycle route system that tries to do its best to outline routes throughout the United States that are safe and are through routes for bicyclists that don't have to worry about dealing with traffic. So just kind of consider it bicycle interstates throughout the United States. And so we have our own here with 36. 35 actually goes through central LaPorte County. It's not shown on here, but we have done 36, and it's not only proposed, but it has been completed. Many of you, well, some of you, if you're keen enough and actually keep up with this, there is a 37 route that is now germinating, and it's getting very close to being approved from the Erie-Lackawanna Trail, I think, in Griffith, going all the way to Indianapolis. So we're looking to get that up and running too for US 37. See that done. Things that we do at NIRPC, we try to keep people, focused on where they're at. Now, when I came on board 20 years ago, trails were kind of happening scattershot. If anyone knows anything about the region, we're a bit parochialized, okay? And the great thing that I love about working for NIRPC is that I can work at this top-down level and get people and communities together to work together. So over the years, we've been able to do that. We've been able to kind of bring all these trail initiatives together. But then when you're out there, you didn't know where you were. It was like, this is pretty, but where am I going? So we finally were able to unveil a unified trail signage program back in 2016. So when we do build our trails, we encourage, in fact, I think we even mandate with our own money that they put these signage features in where necessary. Again, the welcome signs, which are great, all at trail scale. I mean, you're on the Erie-Lackawanna Trail, for example, you're going to go through 6 different entities and you're going to be able to have a trail sign for every one of them. There's just something about that. And of course, not only the feeling you get for going through communities, but if you get injured, if there is a problem, you know where you're at. And so that's what these signs help alert people to. It helps with emergency services. Mile markers have been huge as well because everyone likes spray painting on the trail. Now they can stop doing that. They can use the mile markers. Trails and the signs have been wonderful. Here I am modeling one of them in Crown Point, but you get to the city of Crown Point on the other side that says "Welcome to Maryville." So it gives people kind of a sense of accomplishment and again a sense of identity and community as well. Now, people love our bike map. If you're on this call, you probably have used our map, and this has been a very popular product in Northwest Indiana since I first helped get it out in 2007. Just so you know, we are putting out the 2024 map. It is under production at this time. We're hoping to get it printed sometime later this month and distributed region-wide next month. Okay, so please, we are working on it. We haven't had a map out since 2021, and we're hoping to get this distributed, updated accordingly, and also our app. So you can actually download this now. It is on App Store. It is on the Google Play network. You can see our Calumet Greenways and Blueways. The app, it took us several years to finally get it online, but we do have it online. It's there for you to use. And we'll be updating that, of course, significantly this year, as well as part of the entire 2024 update. So make yourself, avail yourself of that technology. And another thing to kind of point out as well, we're installing these gray trail counters throughout the region. Counting trails and counting users on the trails is very important. It really helps local officials understand how popular trails are. I do know that there have been some negative people, let's just put it that way, that just think trails are useless and no one uses them. So I've actually had some people ask me, do you tell me what's happening? And I've sent them data from these counters and they shut up. They see several hundred people using trails a day and maybe even more of that using them in the weekends and so forth. And even during the wintertime, people are always out there using trails, primarily for recreation, but also in some cases utilitarian uses. So we're looking to proliferate the region with these electronic trail counters. And don't worry, they don't do anything but just count. Okay, they don't take your credit card information. They don't care where your favorite place to eat is. I've gotten that as well. Trust me, that is not what they do. They'll count you. They'll count Bambi. They'll count a leaf if you put it too close. Anyway, they're out there, and we're hoping to get those numbers going for public consumption on our website at the NIRPC.org website within the next month or so. We're still trying to calibrate it with some kind of Neanderthal trail counters that we've had out there for many years that we're upgrading, but we want to make sure we can at least calibrate those numbers and have an accurate picture. And we've had those older counters out there since I think 2017. And I will conclude with this. I've just given you this incredible overview, hopefully, of all the trails in Northwest Indiana, both by sea and by land. But we have to also think about ways of getting people around this region otherwise. We put out this 2050 plan last year. And if you're on this call, I would encourage you to look at our active transportation chapter. We did a deep dive into different routes that we can connect the trails to on our roadways. What you see here doesn't really, it's kind of hard to make, sense of it, but those red lines throughout this map here show you up to 48 separate corridors that have been identified as complete streets corridors, getting people from one part of the region to another with improved street infrastructure. And that is what we need to do next in our region. We have been crazy successful with our trails, not so successful with making sure that people can get around our region safely. I try to tell people trails are great, but there are interstates. Just like you're not going to drive your car off of I-65 into your house unless it flies. You're going to need roadways to get to your home. Same thing with our roadways and our networks here. You would love to just make your home your trailhead, wouldn't you? Just get out of your driveway on your bike, and you can access either trails or other places and destinations safely in your community without having to worry about cars intimidating you and what have you. So we did a deep dive. We went through all these corridors in the region. We took a look at all these types of examples throughout the region and throughout the country, getting some preferences on what people want. Of course, the more separated a route can be from the roadway, the higher preference it got. No surprise there. Of course, everyone still loves trails, but side paths are a great example. They've been working very well in Valparaiso, for example. And again, we also have buffered bike lanes that you see here on the very left-hand side of the screen there that Hammond, Indiana has recently installed. Again, as you can see, not many people are as comfortable with those, but these are the type of improvements that we're looking to install throughout this region. And then here's a chart with lots of words, but I'll just summarize it by saying you have these different types of roadways on the left side of your screen. And what we do is that we describe them. And then we actually describe how infrastructure improvements can be utilized there. This is an overview. And if I actually had time, which I really don't, to get into this in much detail, we break down these 48 routes segment by segment by segment. And we talk about how many people are using it, what's the average daily travel on that route, what's the condition of the roadway, what's the width of the roadway, what's the speed limit of the roadway, what are the planned infrastructure improvements. We are trying our best to give the local officials everything they need to plan these out in their localities. And just a lot of thanks and appreciation to RDG, the consultants that helped put that together. I'm not going to take credit for that. That was a lot of work. And to really identify where we can make our region a place where people can travel safely. And I'm done. I really thank you for your
Mitch.
attention. I certainly hope you haven't fallen asleep out there because I cannot tell everyone's off their video cameras right now. But I do appreciate you guys taking the time to hear me out. Thank you. And I'll be more than happy to answer any questions people have.
Mitch, just thank you so very much. I feel like I just got fire hosed.
Yes.
And I want to acknowledge that we have two participants from the state of Missouri and one from California.
Ooh, we
So
are national. Love it.
this really went outside Northwest Indiana. Em, were you keeping an eye on the questions that were showing up in the chat?
I am. Okay, so we've got one first question that is, does the Manon Trail go all the way to Indianapolis?
Does Monon? Okay. Right now we have no trails that go to Indianapolis. There is a couple of Monon trails. We know that there's a Monon that's creeping up from Indianapolis. That's kind of a gold standard trail going through Carmel and then Sheridan. It stops in Sheridan right now. I think the length of the trail is 20, 30 miles. There's a few more miles it has to go before it reaches up here. And unfortunately, a lot of these old railroads kind of have been taken over, have been farmed over. The Monon is one of those. There is still parts of it that are still viable for trail conversion. We are looking at a possibility of making that connection. Of course, right now, as I had just mentioned in this presentation, the big connections we're making are the Great American Rail Trail. That goes, again, from our region all the way to Richmond, Indiana, and we're making those connections happen. But maybe if we get closer, maybe in the Kokomo vicinity, we can kind of create a branch and maybe even intersect with that Monon connection. So it's certainly in the cards.
Wonderful. And then another comment from John G says, you mentioned shared trails with motorists. That's one of the main concerns I have as a bicycle rider here in Valparaiso. I'm sure when some of the bike routes were established, the traffic was not so heavy, but on 250 West, that is designated a bike route, it has become very dangerous to ride on. Is there anything that NIRPC can do to get Porter County to improve that passage?
That's a question that comes up quite often, and he's absolutely right. Those routes were established 30 years ago, and things have changed a bit in Valparaiso when it comes to development. And again, I talked about the problem we're having now with just distracted driving. There's nothing you can do except try your best to promote the fact that you should not be texting and driving. Otherwise, it's hard. It's almost impossible to plan that unless you plan separated facilities. But a lot of bicyclists still enjoy our roadways, and we do need to revisit both the Porter and LaPorte County systems to make sure they are safer for our riding public, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
And we want to do that at NIRPC. This is the kind of stuff we can do. We can impress upon the Porter County officials, and I certainly hope that is something we can attend to this year, if not earlier.
Em, were there any questions on Facebook and comments?
None on Facebook.
Okay.
Rob, our Northwest Indiana Paddling Association friend, also just has a little comment that says, shout out to NPS and NIRPC for supporting the town of Porter's project to design a north and south trail connecting Porter Beach and the downtown Porter to the Calumet area.
Okay.
This will help us build.
Yeah, I could be on this call for another hour talking about
Yeah, we could be on here for another hour, for sure.
But thank you, Rob, for making that comment. By the way, Nancy, I do see a hand up from Keith. Do you have a question, Keith?
Keith, you dropped one in the chat. If you have another one, I can unmute you. But question in the chat. What?
I just want to say we're at our time, so we need to move into announcements.
Okay, I think Keith just got unmuted. Just one quick question. Keith, can you just get your question out if you don't mind?
Connection, could you speak just 2 minutes on what needs to be done for the Chicago connection?
To the Marquette Greenway?
Yes.
Well, we got it in there. I mean, Keith makes a good mention. We dealt with Chicago quite a bit, and you can imagine dealing with Chicago at all is tricky. We have a half mile of the Marquette Greenway that goes into the city of Chicago in Calumet Park, right there at the Hammond Marina. And we have a trail that connects to the state line. Problem is, when it got to the other side, the road collapsed. There was no sidewalk. To the city's credit, they did improve the roadway and rebuild the entire sidewalk. But getting from Calumet Park to other places like the Pullman National Monument, also to the major Taylor Trail in that vicinity, the Burnham Greenway, those are things we have to continue to work on, Keith, and we hope to do that.
Okay. Mitch, thank you so very much. This has been so informative and very energizing. And I hope everybody feels like getting out and, if not biking, at least walking some of these wonderful trails that we have in Northwest Indiana. Em, I have two announcements and you may have some from Save the Dunes. So do you want to go first and then I'll follow up, or vice versa?
Sure, I'm happy to go first, Nancy. Thank you. So just a quick couple announcements of upcoming events that Save the Dunes. First, next Saturday, or a week from this Saturday, April 13th, we will be participating with Brown Faces Green Spaces 5th annual Earth Day kickoff, Planet Palooza. We will be tabling in Marquette Park from 10 a.m. to 2:30 with a bunch of our Northwest Indiana partners promoting Earth Month and recycling and all things green. So feel free to check that out on Facebook. Brown Faces Green Spaces has their Facebook event up for that. Then later in the month, we have on April 28th, which is a Sunday, our Spring Ephemerals Bio Blitz, which will be a really fun event looking for spring ephemerals in Shirley Hine Land Trust's managed J. Timothy Ritchie's Preserve in Chesterton, and that's from 12 to 4. Kind of come in anytime, stay as long or as little as you want during that day, and we will be collecting photographs on iNaturalist, which is an app on your phone to track and see all the local fauna and flora that we can collect for Chicago Wilderness's City Nature Challenge that weekend. So it'll be a really fun event. And then just also to let you guys know, we do have our date set and ticket and registration available for our Dunes 5K fundraiser, which is also live on our website. That will be held this year for the first time in the National Park at West Beach. So it'll be a really fun and exciting event.
Thank you, Em. That was great. And Michigan City, Indiana Sustainability Commission is actually having our Earth Day extravaganza, and that's going to be happening on Saturday, May 4th from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. And that's going to be at the Krieger Memorial Park Pavilion that's there. We are still open and have opportunities if people are still interested in tabling at that, Mitch, or maybe somebody, regarding the trails. And it's going to be a fun event. There's going to be information. There's going to be a fossil hunt, native plant hike, many other fun things. It's really for individuals and families. So please come and join us for that. And then I would be remiss if I didn't mention our next Green Drinks is happening on Thursday, May 2nd, always the first Thursday of the month. Dr. Ken, I should say Dr. Professor Ken Schoen from Indiana University Northwest will be with us. He's Professor Emeritus there. He's written a very well-known book in the area called Dreams of Dreamland, Duneland, Duneland. Dreams of Duneland, and he's updated it. It's been revised. In fact, it will be published by the time he presents to us. He's a person that's really into tying in together like geography, history, geology, and bringing all this together will make for a very rich presentation on our region. So I hope everybody can join us for that. Mitch, again, thank you so very much. I could very well see having you for 2 hours. And it wouldn't be enough because you have so much and you've done so many things for our region that have just made people want to get outside, and you've enriched our lives from a sensory perspective. And also I know many people are healthier because of the efforts that you've made. So just from the bottom of my heart, thank you so very much. You're really
Thank you, Nancy.
a living treasure for us. Thank you.
Geez, thank you so much. And by the way, boiler up. Thank you so much.
Boiler up. Everybody will be saying that for us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.